Hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Talk.
Hello from wherever you're joining us.
And let us know where you're joining us. Put in the chat. Put in the chat. Where are you watching us from or listening to us from? Because we're now on podcasts.
Yeah, and here in the States, we do this on like mid Monday morning.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm curious if you're joining us from this area, like drop a word in on the comments, like how is your Monday starting?
Uh-huh.
And if
Yeah.
you're somewhere else in the world, it's likely Monday for you. It might be already Tuesday, but how's your day going? What's a word to describe it?
Ooh, I like that. Because that really flows into our what's trending section.
Yes.
Because one thing that, as I was sort of on social media yesterday, there was a common theme. I actually saw this a couple of times where there's one page that I follow that do a lot of generational things. I talked to you about it, Jill, because it's just so funny. He's really funny about like the different generations at work
Yeah.
and how they respond. I'm sure I'm going to share more on Real
Oh yeah,
Talk.
we got to bring up a picture of him at the next time.
Yes. And I'll share some videos, as we kind of learn technology with Real Talk. But one thing that he sort of put out on his threads yesterday is the way he said it was 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. on a Sunday is honestly the most depressing time.
Wah wah.
Right? Like it immediately made me think about company culture, right? And people, when they show up to work, are they excited or are they dreading showing up?
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Because even as you talk about how it shows up on social media and those algorithms start picking up on it, so it probably just
Mm-hmm.
populates, a whole bunch of your feed with things like this. And
Yeah.
so how our minds even start thinking about this time period more. And yeah, how do we
Mm-hmm.
frame it? What's the story we tell ourselves around tomorrow's like a work day?
Yeah.
Even if we're one of those
Right.
people who you've been on call 24/7, 365 anyways,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
still have a Monday morning that you're popping into.
Yeah, Jill, you know what? That's such a good point. Because I feel like there were times that I felt the exact same way. I mean, there's still times today, right?
Yeah.
Like that you're like, oh, Monday, right? Like you got to go, you're back into routine on a Monday. But one thing that I tried to do was not think about Monday on Sunday.
Hmm.
Like don't necessarily think about the next day or the next day or what I need to do next week or, all these like worries or anxieties or unknowns where in reality I just need to be in the present. The part of having a weekend for those who don't work weekends, or just even think about your days off, whether it's PTO, you're on vacation, or you're taking a mental health day, to not allow other things to crowd your mind during that time and really stay present with what you're doing. And that has helped me a lot, even like right, even in school when you're like, I gotta go to classes tomorrow, right? Like, or I have this test this week coming up where it's like, okay, this is what I'm doing right now. I'm gonna focus on what I'm doing right now and enjoy what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting when you talk about that because, right, part of this trending segment we have is like real or not real. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious, does this feel real or not real to people
Yeah.
that are listening? And, I tend to believe that since we all kind of go, ha ha, like we get it, that probably a higher proportion of people feel this is real in some way, shape, or form.
Oh yeah. Yes. Yes, because that's the time, and I thought it was interesting. This is one of the ones that I saw that actually gave a time frame. Most people talk about like Sunday evenings or a Sunday as the full day, right? But like this time of 5 to 8, it's like that's 3 hours of a day that you're really dedicating to the next day,
Mhm.
and not dedicating good things about the next day, right?
No.
Already getting into this negative mindset about what Monday is going to be.
Yeah, and even if it's not like maybe you don't categorize it as negative, it's still like you're stealing time from right now to think about tomorrow
Yes.
in a
Yeah.
way, in whatever way, shape, or form that is, versus like, I'm going to be here and like enjoy this moment because tomorrow might not even be real for us.
Right.
I mean, that's the
True.
reality of where we live. Nothing's permanent, but
Yeah.
yet we still will steal time and I'm guilty of it too, right? And
Yeah.
thinking, gosh, if I just check my email, I'll be ready for whatever hits me for Monday morning.
Right.
Or, oh
Right.
my gosh, if I just check this one thing or send this, or, insert excuse for, I'm going to say, needing to kind of get a jump on Monday, even though it's really
Yes.
not getting a jump on Monday.
No, it's not. It's just trying to satisfy your own anxieties and stress and worry about, about the next day. And then, I also think about the times where I had fun at work, right? And I enjoyed the people that I worked with. And, it's almost like, wow, when I get into work, I can't wait to tell Jill about this thing, or I can't wait to talk to this person about this, or whether it's work related or not. It's one of those things where you don't see your work friends on the weekends, right? So it's like going into a place where it's like, yeah, there's some work. There's probably some things you don't want to do on Monday morning or not looking forward to, but there are also some really great things to look forward to going into your workplace. And so I think about organizational culture, right? In the feeling of this, in those moments, I felt like I did belong there, right? Like those were my people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that everyone, right, is a part of my people there, but I do have my people that are there, and I'm looking forward to having conversations with them and working with them and talking with them and solving problems with them. When you have that feeling, and I've had the reverse, right, where it's like, man, I gotta go and deal with those people, right? I gotta go and deal with the people that give me anxiety, or the people that's dumping problems on my lap, or I know there's going to be a problem because of the people that I work with. That's totally different, and it could mess with your Sunday mindset as you go into work. And when you think about, as a leader, you want your team to be successful, you want to empower them, you want them to work towards their goal. It's really hard doing that if you're just dreading coming to work.
Yeah. And I think for me, that's part of the takeaway, where like we've all been in this space, but as leaders, how are we stepping into this space to, one, recognize it's happening,
Mm-hmm.
and then two, make a change?
Yeah.
Like, this is our opportunity to engage with the people around us, whether they're direct reports, whether they're colleagues, whatever it is,
Yeah.
kind of set the stage. We know organizational cultures don't always align, but you can make like this microcosm culture right in your
Yeah.
own space to be like, when we're away, we recharge. When
Mm-hmm.
we're here, we jump in. But
Mm-hmm.
you don't need to straddle and take away from both of these spaces.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
that's about setting the culture. And I
Yeah.
think too often we just take these things for granted because it's out here in the algorithm and showing up in our feed, and we go ha ha
Mm-hmm.
ha. We identify with it, when really sometimes it's that moment of like, does it need to be that way?
Yes. Yes. So I'm curious, Jill, if a team member said, man, like this time is the most depressing time, and I literally feel depressed thinking about work. If a team member said that with you, what are some things that you think about to help them feel differently about coming
Like,
to this?
why are you thinking about work on Sunday night if you're not there?
Number one.
Like, really, but that's part of
Yeah.
it. Like, what is causing you to have to step into that space? Is it around expectations?
Yeah.
Is it like because I feel the need? Like, what's
Mm-hmm.
driving this need for you to have to do that?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I love that question because it gets to like the real, like the center, right? Of why are you feeling this way outside? Like you're not even here and you're feeling that way. What is driving that for you?
And
And to really think about, right? Like, what are some things, okay, now that you know the driver, what are some things that I can put into place, right? Or I can help remove barriers for you. But then more importantly, what did you notice about yourself on the things that you're bringing home with you, or the things you're thinking about that's causing you to take away 3 hours of your day
mhm.
um, to, feel terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. And just making sure that you're leaving space to be curious and kind
Yeah.
about it, instead of like, why are you thinking like that? But
Yes.
like, really, what's behind that?
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's often interesting because we make assumptions, we create our own stories, we all kind of chuckle along with it, but really right? Behind all those jokes, sometimes there's that part of like, well, what's actually the truth there or your truth there
Right.
that you need to explore?
Yes. Yes. I feel like that's my takeaway. My
Mm.
takeaway of, you know, does my team members feel this way? Right. And then what's behind that? What's
Yeah.
behind that feeling?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we want to hear from you, right? Like if you had a team member say this, what would you say or do? And then I'm also curious, like, do you feel this way
Mm-hmm.
about
Yeah.
it?
Whew. All righty. Wow. We're as those like kind of like come on in for us. We have another topic that we're covering today.
And we are. It's our main topic.
Yes.
Feedback.
Yep. But if you haven't been here, first, welcome to Real Talk by Catalyst Food Leaders.
Yes.
We are here to have honest conversations to lead people forward in food. I'm Jill, and this is Tia. And today we are talking about something that every leader knows they should be doing well, but very few actually are, and that is feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And really, the part we're talking about today is like why you're probably doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So whether you're giving it, receiving it, avoiding it, today we want to really kind of unpack like how feedback culture makes or breaks your team performance.
Mm-hmm.
Because whether you are holding back to give it to people or you are kind of shying away from it, like this is what can make things start shifting for you and your team. And you can do it this week.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And feedback, it's one of those things that sounds easy, feels easy to do, but most of us do it wrong. Right?
Yeah. And I think
we learn better.
There's this general thing out there, right? Like, hey, if you give feedback, be specific and be timely. And like, those are cool. Like, those are logical. But like, we want to go a couple layers below that because, I can give specific feedback like, oh, hey, Tia, you did a great job setting up this Real Talk today. Thanks. Is that very meaningful?
Right.
No.
Right.
No.
Not at all. And it doesn't mean there's not a place for that, right? But I feel like that's, even though that is a category of feedback, it's not the feedback that's needed most of the time to move people forward.
Yeah. And, I think I used to think about feedback because, back in the day when you heard you're getting feedback, that usually meant you did something wrong.
Right.
But really reframing that feedback is about helping people succeed and being aligned on expectations.
Yes.
Like, I know that sometimes sounds scary and people don't like the word expectations, but really like if we're here to work together and do our part and help our organization do what they do, like if we're not aligned, we know it's just not going to work.
Exactly. And as a person, right, like in an organization, I want to make sure that I am aligned with expectations. Most people want to do great work at work, right? Like they want to solve problems. They want to do their job well. And feedback is a part of understanding if you're doing your job well or not, or if you need a pivot, right? And many times, all of us, I'm sure we can think of examples in our careers, no matter how long you've been in food, of times that you needed to realign with expectations. And as leaders, like you said, it is our job to do that. So let's first kick off by talking about like why most feedback failed. Like when we say you're doing it wrong, why are we failing at this?
Well, what I had just given was a really good example. That was so surface level. It had no meat to it.
Right. Exactly. Right. Like this.
Had I done something like, wow, I know you've had to navigate like changing the system and figuring out this reusable studio and hooking it up to a podcast and like all this work that you've been doing behind the scenes is really appreciated. Like that's cool. And granted, that's probably more appreciation than feedback.
But that's what I was thinking too. But I do think it falls underneath the feedback umbrella because it's one of those things. It's like that positive feedback of like, okay, you're moving in the right direction, and I appreciate these things that you're doing, and keep going. Right? Like it's that whole piece of the reason why it's better to give feedback that's not surface level, right? That has no meat on its bones, is because you hear the thank you and you're like, oh, you're welcome type thing. But when you give more meat, it's more around like, yes, I need to keep doing that action. right? Like people should walk away saying, yes, okay, I need to lean into it and keep doing that action more. I need to keep moving down this path. And I think that's really when it becomes feedback, that it empowers people to keep moving,
Mhm.
or give them that direction that, yes, we are aligned, keep moving.
Yeah. Let's see, what other things cause feedback to fail?
Mm. Yeah, one thing is fear-based.
Mm.
This is one that stands out to me because sometimes people give feedback. I mean, many, many times, Joe, I know you can think about this in your career, of when a leader gives feedback, but it is really based on the fear of, oh, you're growing too fast, so let me give that feedback. Or I ran into this in my career quite a bit early on you're ready to move to the next level, but we actually don't have a spot to promote you. So we're going to give you this feedback to kind of distract you from things, right? So that you can continue growing where you are. But instead of really focused on the transparency and the honesty of, hey, if we promote you, then you're going to have to move, right? Or you have to be in a different space. Instead of having that conversation, the feedback is really built around the fear of, you're going to leave if you're not promoted, right? Or I'm going to leave. Are you going to leave this site and I really need you here, or whatever reason, or just insert that fear around, I'm fearful of what you would do with this feedback, or I'm fearful of what you would do moving forward. So I almost hide pieces of the feedback, right?
Mhm.
And maybe it's really around this lack of transparency.
Yeah, and I would say there's some fear, like just even from ego, right? Like as a manager, when you have somebody who's coming up and doing really well, sometimes there's that fear of like, well, what if they're doing better than me?
Oh, yeah.
And I know a lot of people are like, oh, that seems lame. But hello, ego always like shows its ugly head at different times. And
Mm-hmm.
even if we're not always consciously aware of it, there can be things that as leaders that we do where we're like, well, I'm going to give you this nitpicky feedback because I'm going to kind of put you in your place.
Oh, yes.
And I know that sounds really petty, and it can be, but that's part of the whole like scarcity mindset of like, if you grow too fast, is there still room for me?
Yes, that is like, I mean, this is the real of real talk, right? Because many, many times leaders do that, where they are really trying to, they don't want you to speak out as much, right? Or you're not the right person to speak in this meeting, right? Or you're not the right person to do this. Or just like you're saying, I'm going to put you in your place wherever I feel like you belong. And when you think about feedback, right? Like you're definitely doing it wrong if you're doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, it's not this isn't a space where we're looking to judge you for doing that. I am sure in my history, I have done it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, Not because I was being intentional to be like ego driven by it, but I also know that we model behaviors we see around us.
Yes.
So that's part of why, doing feedback can be a bit of a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
as we come into kind of the end of the year, I think about how many people I've heard that are, finishing up year-end performance reviews or getting ready for
Mm-hmm.
that. And I even heard someone the other day talk about doing one, and they like just even things like I'm going to have to give feedback that they're not meeting expectations.
Oh, yeah.
And I think about like one, like you should never hear that in your year-end performance review.
Right.
But the second one is as leaders, how sometimes we can forget that we are really like driving feedback one direction.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
really like not creating a conversation around feedback, because we create this story like, I saw them do this and I need to tell them that next time they need to do it this way or do it different.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's with good intention, right? It's good intention to be like, how do I help them have better success when I saw something that maybe doesn't seem like it's success?
Mm-hmm.
But I think the other part, not only being this one directional, I know I'm kind of stacking here,
Yeah.
but the other part is being directional instead
Right.
of being
Yeah.
curious.
Ooh, that's big. That's big, right? Like go in the direction I want you to go in versus like you're saying, opening up this conversation.
Yeah. I
So
still always
common.
live in the camp of like, when somebody does something, they are often their biggest critic and can see things that need to be improved.
Yeah.
So, how do we as leaders just go, hey, what'd you notice about that?
Exactly. We talk about this a lot in boot camp. It's actually one of our modules, and we actually have a method that we talk about on how you can actually pause, listen, right? Listen to the person first, because it doesn't make sense for you to give feedback to a person that's like, yeah, I noticed, right, that I really wasn't prepared for that one, right? Like I need to take some time to prepare sooner. That's something that I learned. And then now it's more around that support for you, right? If that was the feedback you were going to give, like now it's more, now you can say, I am so happy you noticed that, right? How can I help you in this process versus adding to the thing that they're already feeling? Or maybe they got the reverse feedback of like, wow, we loved your presentation. And then you open it up and you're like, yeah, the VP told me this, and this person told me this, and this key stakeholder told me that they loved it. And you were about to give the opposite feedback.
Right. Which doesn't mean that your feedback or what you noticed and experienced isn't valuable, but it also can put context to other things. Sorry,
Right.
can you hear my dog up there?
A little bit. Oh, is this Nina?
She is not happy right now. I'm going to have to give her some feedback.
Is this Luna?
Yep, that's Luna up there.
Luna. We love Luna. We love Luna. Luna is our little new baby.
Yeah. But back to feedback. I think that's where we often, as we've been told that giving constructive criticism or constructive feedback, however you want to provide it, is a responsibility of a leader. And it is, but it's not always what we give, it's how we give it.
Yeah, exactly. And you need that context to be able to shift how you give it. One thing, even as we talk about like giving this constructive criticism or feedback, a lot of people try to use it in a way of, oh, I'm really going to help you grow. But how you do it, exactly what you're saying, is so important. And to partner it with the type of feedback that you talked about early on, like this positive reinforcing feedback versus constructive feedback. There's actually, we talk about this in boot camp too, there's actually data that shows that generations, even younger generations, need more positive feedback than constructive feedback. And I can't remember the exact numbers, but I think it's like 14-1.
So that big.
Means, yes. And it's even more for the younger generations coming into the workplace. So think about like, okay, if I'm going to give some constructive feedback, have I even been giving positive feedback along the way? Just that alone can impact the way someone takes feedback, right? And moves forward with feedback.
Yeah. And I know often that can feel overwhelming. Like if you're in a generation of like, no news is good news.
Yes.
But, even growing up in a generation of part of that, like no news is good news, is really unfortunate because it does not provide you any avenue for like, it's not just good news, right? Like we're not here just to be status quo. Right. We're always on this quest of improvement, whether it's us personally or even professionally. So without that feedback, like the no news is good news, that's like old school leadership.
Oh, yeah.
And if that's the approach that someone in your circle is maybe doing, this might be a podcast or a YouTube that you want to share with them.
Absolutely.
Because we hear you. We hear you, and that sounds like being mindful of like not taking people's time, just to say nice things or to give people kudos when a lot of times people are like, I don't need a pat on the shoulder. Yeah. But the reality is that not only do we need pats on the shoulders, we also need people to help us see those blind spots we don't know.
Yes, absolutely. Because when I think about no news is good news, right? Like that person's just thinking about, okay, I'm going to keep going on. And I'm sort of like that too. Like if I don't hear any news, like I'm good. I'm keeping keeping going, right?
Yeah, I got plenty of tasks on my list to go do.
Right, exactly. But like you said, psychologically, or even like what's happening in our brain, we actually respond to positive feedback, right? To the pat on the back. And even when we feel like we don't need it, we have like a different like physical thing that happens in our body when we are given, positive feedback. And as leaders, it's important for us to tap into that because it's our job to help shift human behavior, right? It's our job to help people feel belong and to keep them empowered, and all the things, right, that we want to do around great culture. It's our job to help manage that. And so, regardless of it, the person's like, I don't need it or not, we know that that impacts human behavior. So, as leaders, we have to step into that.
Yeah, and I think this is all part of also knowing your people. For the
Yes.
people who are like, I don't need to be in the limelight, cool. How can you give them feedback in a way that fits for them?
Mm-hmm.
And then we know there's people who are like, I want to be gushed over in the meetings and have everybody see me.
Yes.
Cool. Like, what does that look like?
Right, exactly.
So once again, the work we need to do as leaders is not something that we should be taking for granted and even applying like what we think people want, or often we default to what we want or
Yes.
would like because that's what we think would be obvious for everybody else to want to.
Right, exactly. And that's the hard part about leadership. Like you made a comment about like, this seems like extra work, especially for people that do, put their head down and keep working forward and they don't feel like they need it. And I want to say it is work, right? Like leadership is work, and it's something that we should be working on every day. I like exactly the way you said it, like taking it for granted, right? Like we can't do that as leaders. But there's also simple ways too that once you figure out what your team needs, and you understand the way they like to be celebrated, there's simple ways that you can give this positive feedback throughout the day, right? There's ways that you can shoot out reply to an email and say, "Wow, I love what you did here. The crowd really took this on, right? Like I definitely see some improvement since you've done this project." Yeah. Boom, right? Like just a reply to an email, count that as your one positive, count that as a part of your positive stack, so, and each person is different on how we do it, but thinking about these different ways on like, having a brief conversation with someone, getting coffee, and throwing in a positive feedback on like something you've seen or something you've done or how you've worked together. If it fits, right? Like we don't want to make up stuff or try to make it fit. But if there are things for you to give feedback to, or even going out of your way and say, wow, I really like the way she did that. I'm gonna go up and say that to her after this meeting. That is a positive feedback, right? Like that's positive. That's to add to it so that when something comes up that you need to give some formal feedback on, whether it's positive or constructive, you've already been stacking up your positive, feedback through replying to emails and saying quick, thank yous and wow, I really like this part, that really resonated and this is why. Like saying those quick little things in meetings, before you know it, you've done it 15 times, right? You've done it 30 times before you have to give something, before you have to give some critical or some constructive feedback.
Yeah, and I think that also kind of blends even, I would say almost like leadership maturity.
Yeah.
So early on when I was really like, I'm going to study leadership more. This is the area I need to improve. I don't need another certificate. Like I don't need another HACCP or, PCQ or any of that stuff. Like I need to actively be a better leader. One of the things that really helped me to start was doing start, stop, continues and embedding those into our one-on-ones.
Ooh, I love that.
And they were both ways. So not only did I do start, stop, continue for like with my direct report, like they had to do it for me as well.
Ooh.
And by creating a cadence for it, like it kind of got us into this better habit. And granted, it had to evolve over time because when you first start, you're kind of like, how safe can I be here? How much can I tell you? Like that evolves.
Yes.
But it also sets the stage. So in those moments, like you said, maybe after a report is done or a presentation or you see something where you feel more comfortable to be like, hey, can we just pause here for a moment? Like, what did you notice?
Yes.
you've already set the stage to be able to move into that, or at least that was my experience.
Yeah.
It's not the same for everyone, but how do you create something so that you can then lean in and be a little bit more, I'm going to say impromptu,
Yeah.
impromptu, but yet that's still intentional on
Right.
giving feedback in more of those real, like real moments.
Yeah. Yes.
That's more meaningful.
Yes. I love that. I think that's such a great way to not even be able to give that feedback and receive, right, feedback, which then in turn makes it easier for someone else to receive feedback from you. It also helps you even notice the things that they're working on and doing and saying, because half the battle is like, okay, what are they doing that I can give some positive feedback on, or that I can give feedback on? Because, most leaders are not with their people every single day throughout the day, right? But doing the stop, start, continue, that's a way that you can have those conversations on the things that matters most to your person, and things that you can start saying, okay, this is what's coming up every week on our stop, start, continue, or these are some things that keep popping up. How do I make myself available so I can see and witness and give feedback in those areas, positive feedback, especially if you know that they're doing a great job in that area. Where you don't have to necessarily try to do this extra stuff to try to figure them out. I feel like the stop, start, continue would get those conversations going, and you can start making notes. I'm like, okay, I need to be able to give positive feedback on this. Let me be intentional this week of learning more about this, right? Showing up in spaces where I can hear about this project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and such insight, because when people gift you a start, stop, continue, like often those are the things that are important to them,
Mm-hmm.
either
Mm-hmm.
long term or in those moments.
Right. Yeah.
So when you think about how you can be a better servant leader or how you can be a better team member, like those are the things where when somebody says, "Can you start doing this?"
Yeah.
Whatever that is, like you're
Yeah.
like, "Wow, that's impacting them."
Right.
And the same thing, like, "Can you stop doing that?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, "Oh, I didn't even know that made a difference to you." Absolutely. Like,
Yes.
keep doing this. Okay, that's adding value for you. All right.
Yes.
Like, it
Yes.
really starts helping you move into a space where this feedback conversation, once again, goes from, and this takes work, right? I mean, you can still make start, stop, continue surface level, and like it could still be based in fear based, but
Yeah.
this is where, the other parts that we talk about with building relationships and safe space and listening and being curious really create a strong foundation to make this much more meaningful.
Yes, yes, I agree. And I feel like the common thread that we've been talking about is that we're really using feedback to connect
Mm-hmm.
with a person,
Mm-hmm.
right? Versus correcting them. We're using these moments, whether it's constructive or it's positive, using those moments to connect.
Yeah, and I think when we really pause and consider, like last week I was having a conversation with someone and they're like, "Wow, I really need this person just to own stuff." Like I feel like they kind of like they're not really jumping in. And for some reason, there's this fear of telling someone like it doesn't feel like you own your this part of your role. Like what's up with that? Right?
Mhm.
Like that's a hard conversation, could be a hard conversation to have.
Yeah, yeah.
But when you start creating this space to be like, okay, that's something that's in my mind. Like, how do I bring that into a start, stop, continue? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I need you to start like doing this. Like, what would that look like or feel like on your end?
Yes.
Like, it can really help you move into these spaces that maybe you are a little hesitant to do.
Yes, yes. I love that example because I was talking to someone last week too, where they're really trying to get their teams to do things. And what's missing is really that connection that you're talking about, right? Like, what's the barrier, right? I
Mhm.
want you to start doing this. How would that make you feel to even do that type of work, right? Like that's looking at it from okay, I'm not just trying to get stuff done. Like, and I mean, to be fair, all of our minds are there at work, right? Like, we just need to get this done, right? We know our role, we know our title, we know this, logistics is in your title. So, like, you should know you're doing this logistics task, right? Like, we've all had those thoughts. But when we really show up, really thinking about how do I connect with this person, the person that's doing the job, what you notice is that people will start owning, right? They
Mhm.
will start feeling the empowerment. They will start to build that trust, right, with you, so that your stop start continues can get deeper each time, because you're actually looking to connect. That's the number one goal, not to get them to do whatever you think that they should be doing.
Yeah, and so even like the one that I had, it was somebody who needed to lead a project forward, but yet they seemed hesitant to go talk to the people involved because they felt very junior in their role. Like, oh, I have to go talk to these
Um,
people. How do I do that?
mm,
But so, even to be able to be in this space and be like, hey, I noticed that you seem hesitant to pick this up and move it forward. What's going on with that? That
mm.
could potentially allow the person to maybe talk about that part that maybe is what you see, but what are the other things they're experiencing that you don't know?
Right, right,
They may be
exactly.
like, I didn't know I was supposed to actually go talk to them. When you're in your head already, like, you should be talking to these people.
Mm-hmm.
Or I
Mm-hmm.
know we've talked to someone who, like, even something like filling out the form all the way. It's,
Yes.
why can't you do that? And you're like, if we don't have that conversation and say, hey, I noticed that a lot of times, or, 4 out of the 5 times last week, this worksheet wasn't filled out all the way.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me
Mm-hmm.
more about, like, why isn't it all filled out?
Right, exactly. What's
This
preventing you, right,
Yeah,
from
this
moving
opens the
forward?
door to have more conversation versus being like, hey, that form's not filled out again. You got to get that thing filled out all the way.
Right, exactly.
That shuts down conversation.
That shuts down conversations.
They're not
Exactly.
in that moment. They're not going to be like, well, hey, I didn't know what to do with this. They're like,
Right.
oh my gosh, I'm just supposed to fill it out.
Right, exactly. I mean, there really are reasons on why the form is not done, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Or
oh,
why this person hasn't talked to these people about the project.
exactly. There's real reasons out there, and you might not be able to think about them, right?
Yeah.
Like most of the time, you're not going to be able to come up with a reason because you're not that person. So that's why it's good to connect with them to figure out, why, right? Why are they not moving forward? What's preventing them? Or even the other person. Maybe one person's doing it, the other person's not. What's allowing that other person to be able to move quickly?
Mm-hmm. And I love how you keep framing it. Like, this is about connection,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
creating connections with people so that you can navigate through these things. Because in our head, it probably seems really straightforward and logical of like what needs to happen. And clearly for someone else, it's not there.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so feedback is just about how do you connect with someone to be like, this is what I see. What do you see?
Yes. Yes.
Like, let's talk about this space because I feel, and it's probably closer than what they're probably more closer in what you're seeing than
Mhm.
further apart.
I agree. I agree. I think the number one thing we get wrong with feedback, and we talked about, surface level, really using, correct instead of connect.
Mm.
I think one of the main things we do around feedback, and you actually sort of mentioned it earlier on, where there's things that you have to do to support giving feedback before you even give feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And that is to make sure your team is ready to receive. And you mentioned earlier on, like, you still have to first build the relationships. You
Mm-hmm.
have to build the safe spaces. You have to build that safe space so they can trust, right? Even trust the words that's coming out of your mouth, right? If you're saying great job, but I don't really actually trust you to be a great leader, then I'm thinking, wow, maybe I need to shift some things if you think I'm doing a great job, right? So, like, even for people to take on your feedback and move on your feedback, there are things you have to do to get them ready for feedback, right? And
Mm-hmm.
even for ourselves. In order for me to be ready to take some feedback, I need to get in the right mindset, right? I need
Mm-hmm.
to be ready and prepared to get feedback from not just about this project, but from that person, right? From that leader. And many, many, many times people miss that step.
Yeah, all because we've been thinking about this, this gap, this feedback, this
Mhm.
whatever it is, does not mean the other person has at all.
Right.
And I think sometimes we forget that because we've been replaying the story or this conversation that we're going to be having with someone, that they're there.
Right.
And
And they're not.
No. So we do need to stop. So I mean, it could be a timing thing like that, but even, I've had things where people are like, "Hey, could you just, have you thought about doing this next time?" Like that's the feedback.
Oh,
And I'm like, that's a suggestion. And like,
right,
no, I won't do it that way because I like
right.
how I did it this way, which is why I did it this
This
way.
way, like, no, I have not thought about that.
So I think even as leaders, we really need to think about like when is something like, hey, we need it to be this way for this reason,
Hmm.
or is it just a preference? Like this is the part of the connection of like when is something a needs to be, and yes, it's this is what it must be versus like, hey, here's a suggestion for improvement.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's important, right? It's important. And one thing too that I talked about even last week in Strategic Leader, where you as a leader, what you say matters,
Mm.
right? What you say, how you say it matters. We were actually walking through a module called The Power of Words. And we talked about how, when leaders say, "Oh, it's just my 2 cents," or "I'm saying it in this way, and I don't know if it's a suggestion or if I need my people to move forward with it." Like how you say things matters, right? And when you throw out things like, "Have you thought about doing it this way?" Okay, what does that mean to that person, right? Like, is this a suggestion? Do you want me to do it that way? Do I need a shift? For some people, that's like, okay, I'm not going to shift, right? Like, you didn't ask me to shift. I love the way I did it this way, so I'm going to keep doing it. You're going to have people like that. You're also going to have people that's going to say, wow, they said that, so I'm just going to change everything and start doing it. Even though that person might have just thought of another way you could possibly do it, and they just threw out that information, right?
Right.
So as leaders, as we're giving feedback, and we've been talking about it, right? Like being intentional, not being surface level, and making sure that you are clear,
Yeah.
because people are going to do something with your words. Like they're going to do something, they're going to think something, they're going to do some type of action or lack of action,
Or
right?
feel something.
Or feel something around your words. And we have to be intentional about those things because it can either empower people to move forward or it can stop them in their tracks.
Yeah. And I think in all of this, there is still always, we haven't talked about really this power dynamic,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Just because we have boss and employee, boss, leader. I mean, there's always some boss. And no matter how much, right, no matter how much you're like, oh my gosh, like my team, like I'm just one of the team and we all work together. At the end of the day, there is still a power differential.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's still a power differential of like, I mean, right? Bosses can put people on performance plans and fire people and terminate people and all
Mm-hmm.
these other things that impact a team member's well being, their family life, their home life. Like, there is a space where, I mean, no matter how much safety you build in, there's still a power dynamic. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why leaders have to be really mindful of this.
Mm-hmm. They do. They do. They have to be mindful of it. They have to notice, right? Notice when someone is shying away from things or they're not letting their voices be heard because of this power dynamic. You have to be intentional as a leader. And this is part of that intention is knowing, right? Like there is this power dynamic and you need to make sure you address it, right? And that can be silently,
Yeah.
right? It could be upfront where you say, hey, I have created this safe space, right? Being intentional. I've created this safe space. Let's talk about these things that's safe here, or it might just be you speaking last, right? Because you do have that power dynamic and you want to hear from your team and make sure, it depends on the situation. But as a leader, you must acknowledge it, right? And be intentional about how you show up because of it.
Yeah. And all shapes and forms of this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this is the part about, even when we think about being inclusive as a leader, because there are dynamics, there are gender dynamics, there are race
Mm-hmm.
dynamics, there are cultural dynamics that create power dynamics in
Yes.
relationships. And those are things that, you may, as the leader, be like, oh, I don't see it. Well, maybe because you've never experienced it or not the
Right.
closest person. Those
Yes.
are still things that you got to have your eyes open to think about. It's what they're experiencing, not what you're experiencing.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. I've had so many conversations just about that lately,
Mm.
where it really for me, right? Like, it doesn't matter if I feel great about a situation or I feel terrible about a situation. If that person is saying, this is what I'm experiencing, that's what they're experiencing,
That's real.
right? That's real.
You can never take away someone's lived experience.
You can't. You
Do
can't.
not try to discredit that. That's like a big pet peeve of mine when people are like,
Yes.
oh, you should be angry about that. Well, no, you didn't feel that. Like, yeah, I did.
Right.
I did.
Right. Yes, yes. And as leaders, it's our responsibility to acknowledge that and support that, right? Like, if someone is saying that, they feel a certain type of way, or there is this dynamic happening, or they're not getting the right support, it doesn't make sense for you to be like, well, you've gotten all the support that you needed. Well, obviously not. They're telling you something different, right? Or, I feel like I can't speak up in this space. Oh yeah, you can. People want to hear. Okay, again, that's very dismissive, and that's not the way that they feel about the situation. So you, as a leader, how do you step into to say, I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
I hear that you're saying this, and your presence matter. How can I step in to help show that and to help support you? Right? That's really the only response as a leader you should be giving, because that is their experience, whether you have experienced it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you touched on just pieces of like that dynamic between different cultures, right? Like you said, different race, different genders. We know that there are differences between us, is what makes us great, right? That's why we want more diverse teams, right? This is the reason why we seek those out, is because we learn from each other and the different perspectives that we have. When it comes a time, right, that those differences creates some type of turmoil, right, or some type of unease, it's important for us as leaders to lean into that, right, and to, because we know, right, when we're all different, we know there's going to be some unease happening, right? Mm-hmm. That's just as human beings. Even if we're all the same, we know there's going to be some conflict there, some friction there. As leaders, it's important for us to have the tools to be able to lean into that and have conversations without dismissing.
Yeah, and I think this goes back to like human kindness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because there is this balance of like the authenticity of who we are as a leader, and right, we bring our own lived experiences where we're like, wow, when I say this phrase, like, that's what we always say, but somebody else may hear that and be like, that is so offensive,
right? Yeah.
So we have to really think about, and I know some people are like, well, then we have to be so politically correct and all that, and It's not about being politically correct, it's about human kindness.
Yeah, and compassion.
It is. And so especially when we're thinking about feedback, like our words really matter. So when we are giving feedback and being curious about feedback, like all these parts, it may sound like there's a lot here, but if you can lead with, curiosity and kindness, you will go far.
Yes, yes. And I also hope the term politically correct goes away. Especially because, like, what
is that these days?
Number one, right? And I think the definition has actually changed, just because, or let's say, like, what is under the category of politically correct has changed, just because there's different generations in the workplace, right? And we show up differently. How we like to be appreciated is different. How we want to show up at work is different. I mean, there's probably people in industry, right, that when they first started, they could not wear jeans to work. Now it's the whole corporations have taken on this come as you are, and we want you to be comfortable at work, right? Like in a professional setting, come as you are, like.
I'm only laughing because this is a whole feedback space where somebody the other day was like, don't these like new generation people know they're not supposed to wear sweats to work? And I'm like, this is a feedback opportunity.
Right, exactly.
And what are sweats? Are they really just joggers, nice joggers, like junky joggers? There's so many different spaces and places where we think of like what's workplace ready apparel these days.
Absolutely. And in so many workplaces, that will be acceptable, right? That will be acceptable. So I think I feel like we've kind of gotten away from really even understanding those norms, because those norms are based on old ways. Right. They're based on old leadership styles. They're based on old ways of being. One thing that the food industry the reason why we're not seeing the movement in culture that we want to see is because we're stuck in the old ways when everything else is moving us to a new way of working. And so in order for us to be in tune and to shift, right, like we have to shift that thinking. And that means the things that felt PC before, they might not be anymore, right? There's new norms happening. And as leaders, we have to be able to shift.
We do. And, and I think that actually leads to, sorry, I'm going to pull this up, but our team readiness tool.
Yes.
I think this is one of the parts that, even when we think about feedback, like, is our team ready for feedback? Mm-hmm. And this really helps you kind of look at these different areas, whether it's, personally, am I ready? Organizationally, am I ready? Operationally, are we ready?
Yes.
With different areas, because it's not just, is that person personally ready for it? Mm-hmm. Like, the things around us are impacting our ability to be ready to hear things. So I just shared the QR code. Snap that and download this free tool. It's obviously I'm biased, but I think it's fantastic to think once again past that surface level, past being one directional, and really starting to go like, is my team in a position where we're ready to have these real conversations so that we can be aligned and we can do more together?
Yes. Yeah, I think the tool is fantastic. And it's simple. It's a simple readiness tool to figure out, are we ready to move to the next level? We also use this tool a lot when we talk about change management. Mm-hmm. Is my team ready to move forward or not? So check out the tool. We have the QR code. We make sure that it's linked so you can download it because it really is a fantastic tool.
Yeah. All right. So as we kind of think about wrapping up today, I like to have a question for us. So
yes.
What's one belief that you've let go of around feedback?
I think, and we talked about this a little bit, in early on in my career, I definitely was no news is good news. Mm-hmm. And that's how I lived my life at that time. But as I learned more about the impact of positive feedback, as a leader, I really stepped into giving more positive feedback, but then also asking for feedback more. Because if I'm not hearing something, which by the way is not true, no news is not good news, like there's conversations that's happening. So I also kind of learned that just because I'm not hearing anything doesn't mean that people aren't having conversations and having negative conversations about things that I'm working on or whatever. So I have actually started asking questions around, hey, I did this. What are your thoughts around it? Is that aligned with where we're going forward? And even asking questions around like, yeah, what do you think about this? These are the options I'm thinking of. Is there a preference here? Knowing what you know about what's coming up, like connecting it to, but still providing solutions for my leader. And so that's one belief around feedback that I had to let go, and it shifted the type of conversations that I was having with others.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good one. The no news is good news.
Yeah. What about you?
I still am always rewiring on this because it's been deep-seated for so long, but like feedback can be scary. So, right? I even joke with others, like, right? Sometimes it feels like you're going to the principal's office. Which, once again, how do we reframe that story? Because principle 2 is like, no, I want to be here to help your success, not be viewed as that.
Yes.
But I think the more we can actively work to like rewire that to think, feedback is a gift. Feedback is a gift. And not to be scared. I mean, yeah, we can't say what to feel because sometimes it is scary getting, feedback. But that's why as leaders, the more we can approach with curious and kindness, the more we can help people not go into that camp of like, oh my gosh, feedback. It's going
to be Yes. And your body gets used to it too, on like having these same emotions around feedback. Once you do it so many times, then it's like, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah. Like how many times does somebody like, hey, make sure you call me before the end of the day. And you're like, oh my gosh, what's that about?
Right.
Instead, why not like, wow, I can't wait to see what they have to say.
Right,
Like
exactly.
even in those scenarios where we're like, I don't know what I'm going to hear, and is that feedback? Like we create this story about it. So we also have the opportunity to create a new story about it.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So I always love to hear from our audience too. Like,
Mhm.
what's one thing you're walking away with today around feedback that's perhaps different than where you were when we started the conversation?
Yes, let
Drop
us
that in the
know.
comments.
Yes, yes. Let us know. Reach out to us, especially if you want to dive deeper into feedback. Because, like we mentioned earlier, feedback, receiving and giving feedback is a huge part of our leadership development programs. So, reach out if you even have some questions around how you're giving feedback.
Yes, exactly. That's what we're here for.
Yes, yes, yes. So, if you do want to find out where your team really stands when it comes to feedback and clarity and support, download this free readiness tool. We have the QR code up. We will have it linked for people who are listening to our podcast in the show notes.
Fantastic.
All right. Okay. And that's it. That's the today's real talk. And if this sparked something for you, whether it's what you shifted, the belief maybe you've given up around feedback, and your takeaway, right? Share it with someone else that's working in food and who's leading with heart and with grit. And then subscribe to our YouTube channel. Come to our website, catch us in our next conversation. We go live every Monday at 11 a.m., 10 a.m. Central. And we would love to keep having these conversations with you because this is where we have real talk, right? Like we really, as you can tell from today, right? Like we get real around our experiences and what we're experiencing in food because we know that when leaders grow, cultures really do change.
Yes.
And with that, we will see you next time on Real Talk. Same time next week.
Make it a great week.
Bye, everyone.